as air raid sirens sounded throughout the night.
Near the capital city of Kyiv, Ukraine's military says the aerial bombardment continues there as well. And now we are seeing a brand new image of damage to a Red Cross building in the city of Mariupol. Look at that. It's got a Red Cross right on the roof, and they still bombed it. Russian airstrikes targeting the building, despite that logo being clearly visible.
Meanwhile, the White House confirming $500 million in new aid to Ukraine. All of that news coming just moments ago from a phone call between President Biden and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. General David Petraeus on Russia's next move. He'll join us in moments. But first to Alex Hogan. She stands by live in Lviv, Ukraine for us at this hour. Hi, Alex.
Hi, Sandra, and hi, John. Ramped up attacks in the specific cities where Russia said it would pull back troops. The governor of Chernihiv speaking about the attacks that took place there overnight, sending a very clear message to Russian President Vladimir Putin.
With each rocket and with each shell that you are sending to Ukraine, which comes to my Chernihiv, you are putting another and maybe already the final nail into your coffin.
Russian forces hammering the eastern edges of the country like Kharkiv, Donetsk, and Mariupol as troops push toward Odessa to cut Ukraine off from the Black Sea. Russian missiles in Mariupol blasting a humanitarian aid point. This is a Red Cross warehouse. Now, remember, Mariupol is the city that is largely in the hands of Russians at this point, where the mayor has called for a complete evacuation. The Red Cross tells me that they are still working to figure out whether or not anyone was hurt there. Now, moving just about 70 miles away is Donetsk, Ukraine's fifth largest city, where a rocket killed at least 2 people there this morning. And emergency workers and rescue dogs today were searching through the rubble and the dust and the ash to find any sense of potential survivors.
I was just sitting on the couch and bang, the window glass popped. The frames came off. I didn't even understand what happened. The flat was full of smoke. I was getting choked by this gas, this smoke, and the kitchen door was all twisted, and so is the bathroom door. And nobody was answering anywhere.
Looking southwest now to Mykolaiv, the death toll has climbed to 12 people killed from yesterday's attack on a government building. Another bomb hitting a residential building where neighbors are cleaning up the damage and cleaning up the broken glass. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky speaking to world leaders asking for more help. He spoke to the Norwegian parliament today saying that this is the moment of future, a defining moment in what means and what will happen for the rest of Europe. Sandra, John.
Alex Hogan reporting live from Lviv for us. Thank you very much, Alex. John?
Sandra, a U.S. official tells Fox News they believe President Putin's advisors are misleading him about how poorly his military is performing. The Pentagon says some Russian troops are moving away from Kyiv, but they say it's more likely that Putin's repositioning his army for a new attack. Former CIA director and retired General David Petraeus joins us now. General, we were talking just before we went on the air. Some significant developments here in Makariv, Irpin. Ukrainians have taken back territory, the same in Boromlia and Trostyanets. The Russian forces moving back toward the border with Belarus, and some indication that they're moving away from Sumy and Kharkiv as well. Where do you think this is headed, General?
Well, what is happening has been very significant, and it reflects the Ukrainian successes, their local counterattacks around Kyiv that have rendered Russian units basically combat ineffective. So they have to be withdrawn back up into Belarus, as you indicated. Mm-hmm. They'll have their personnel and weapon systems and equipment losses replaced, and then they'll move them up through Belarus, then east, and then down through Russia, possibly, to try to bring them into the battlefield where, in fact, there has been success. And you've got it right in there, bring it into now a little bit north of that, where they have achieved some degree of success, and they'll try to bring those forces in and then try to link them up with forces that may be freed up from Mariupol once Mariupol falls. And, of course, Mariupol has become a bit of really the Alamo of Ukraine, fighting literally to the last defender and keeping a number of Russian battalions occupied, pinned down as a result of that, and inflicting tough losses on them. So this is a moment of peril for Ukraine. They have achieved, again, a degree of success around Kyiv, although they're making up for the lack of Russian forces. Russia is with indirect fire and bombs and missiles. The same, of course, in the other city that supposedly they're removing forces from Chernihiv. But they're repositioning, I think, to try to take advantage of the modest but very costly and grinding success they have achieved outside of the greater Donbass area. In other words, outside of the area of those two oblasts, Donetsk and Luhansk, that Russian separatists have controlled, in which they're trying to expand and really recasting what they're trying to achieve. The Russians have, completely given up on taking the capital and replacing the government, and now it's all about expanding the Donbass.
So in this area, the Donbass here, this is still mostly in Ukrainian control, and this is where they have as much as a third of their army. So you're making the point that if the Russians can bring in forces from the north like this and from the south like this in a pincer movement, they can cut off those Ukrainian forces, and then what?
Well, and then those forces are out of the picture. And what it does really to now come out to the bigger picture, which is really where we ought to focus, that is leverage at the negotiating table. Now they've actually achieved something that gives them the kind of leverage that they have not been able to achieve so far. And of course, there were negotiations yesterday in Istanbul between Russian and Ukrainian representatives. The Ukrainians laid out the conditions that would be acceptable to them. Those will be taken back to President Putin. And of course, Putin knows that his economy, his financial system, his business community, and his inner circle are being crushed by the Western sanctions. There should be more, just as there should be more resupply of Ukraine as expeditiously as is possible. But Russia, Moscow, Putin, they are feeling enormous pressure because of these sanctions. That's why they're at the negotiating table. But they do want to see if they can achieve a bit more leverage on the battlefield before they really come to grips with what it is that Ukraine is offering.
Just got about 45 seconds left here, General. So it's been talked about, is this sort of Putin's ultimate goal, and that is to take the Donbass region, to keep Mariupol, and then create that land bridge down to Crimea so that this whole area here now becomes Russian.
Exactly right. That's exactly it. And at the very least, even if they don't keep all of that, it provides considerable leverage, again, at the negotiating table. And of course, he has redefined, his Ministry of Defense has redefined its goals in Ukraine to be just what you've laid out, rather than the original goal of toppling the government, replacing it with a pro-Russian one.
Well, Zelensky has said he'll never accept that, but we'll see. He may be forced to. Stay tuned. General David Petraeus.
He's got to reposition some forces.
Yeah, as always,
it's going to be a challenge.
Thank you for the analysis and the expertise. Appreciate it.
A pleasure, John.